Okay, for whatever reason, not able to share my slides. And it won't let me change the settings.
Maybe you can send to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to send those to you, Yuval.
I will operate the slides for you. Yeah.
Okay, that won't work either because it tells me that the presentation is too large a file. 1 second. Let me try and figure it out on my end. Okay, I think I know what's happening.
Okay, so
I'm gonna have to, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to jump off and come back because I just updated my security settings in order to share the slides. 1 second.
This is Brooke. We're still getting a lot of folks joining, so we'll just hold for another 30 seconds or so. Okay, we're still getting active. A lot of folks joining, so we're going to hold another 30 seconds. Folks are just kind of piling in.
Okay.
Hey, Katya, we're seeing a black screen from you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it says that I'm sharing the window, but apparently, Yuval, can you please try to stop sharing? Maybe that will help.
I think I already stopped. Maybe I leave and rejoin.
Let me try and reshare. Maybe that will work. Brooke, did it work or is it still a black screen?
It's blank.
It's okay.
If you want to try sending to me, Katya, I can also try, but I don't know if it's the file size issue. But if you want to, yeah, maybe PDF it or if there's a.
So you were unable to say anything. Okay, 1 second.
Okay.
Maybe I'll try to leave and come back again, and that will solve the issue. Who knows?
Oh, should I start my side maybe? Because we have two parts. I can start first.
Yeah, Yuval, why don't you join?
Sure.
Why don't you share your slides?
Sure. Let me start first while Katya is working on the technical issue. Well, good morning, everybody. So
Yubao, I'm going to
yeah.
introduce you. So just hold on a second, okay?
Sure.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We have an amazing number of folks on the line this morning, 63. That's really terrific for a final results briefing. So welcome to all our partners and colleagues at DHS and the components. Let me put my camera on. Okay, so I'm Brooke Heffright. I am the CINA director. I am here to welcome you to our final results briefing for the project entitled Emergence and Diffusion of Illicit Virtual Goods Across the International Ecosystem. Our presenters today are Dr. Yubao Wu from Georgia State University. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science, and his co-PI, Katya Bochkovar from Northeastern University. She is undergraduate program director and associate professor of criminology and criminal justice. So we have a lot of old friends on the line today for CINA, but a lot of new ones too. So I'll just say a couple of words about CINA. CINA is a DHS Center of Excellence hosted by George Mason University. So we are a a product of a longstanding cooperative agreement between DHS S&T and the university. CINA stands for Criminal Investigations and Network Analysis. So our mandate is to counter transnational criminal organizations and organized crime. DHS Centers of Excellence are managed by the DHS Science and Technology Directorate's Office of University Programs to conduct groundbreaking research resulting in rigorous, objective knowledge products and timely solutions for DHS components. So if you're from a DHS component, this is your research, funded by S&T, ultimately by Congress, to transition into your workflow. So we're really excited to share it with you and also give you the opportunity to learn more and to transition wherever you can. It is produced under our cooperative agreement. The US government maintains non-exclusive use rights in all of the research, so it's already yours. It's already available to you. You just need to let us know where to send it. Methods in CINA's research portfolio include criminal network analysis, dynamic patterns of criminal activity, forensics, both cyber forensics and traditional forensics, and criminal investigative processes. And today's research from Dr. Wu and Dr. Bochkovar addresses specifically dynamic patterns of criminal activity. In addition to fostering and transitioning research to DHS components, CINA's mandate includes conducting education and workforce activities. These include summer research teams that Mason faculty host, either on campus or remotely, every summer for faculty and students from minority serving institutions through a cooperative agreement that DHS has with ORISE. And we also support interns at DHS components, and we are really pleased and proud to have significantly expanded our internship program for this summer with our colleagues at HSI C3 and CBP's NTC, National Targeting Center. CINA also hosts events and conducts outreach like our ongoing Distinguished Speaker Series. And we have two talks coming up in March. On the 11th, we have Colton Seal, founder and principal consultant at Pixis Academy, who will present on the interviewer mindset. And that event is joint. We're sponsoring that jointly with the High Value Detainee Interrogation Group, or HIG, at FBI, which DHS is also part of. And on the 26th, we'll be hosting David Mayman, professor and director of evidence-based cybersecurity research group, Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Georgia State. So one of Dr. Wu's colleagues. And Dr. Bochkovar, David has actually been quite active with CINA over the years and has also had a role in this research. That will be jointly with the Sycamore Institute, first 501c3 foreign policy focused and national security focused think tank run entirely by college undergraduates. So we're really excited to to feature undergraduates and to get them excited about careers in the broader Homeland Security enterprise. The Colton Seal event with HIG will be entirely remote. The Mayman Talk will be a hybrid event so that we can include as many students as possible. Both of them will be filmed. That's an old-fashioned word to use. Both of them will be recorded, and they'll be available on our website after editing, as are most of our products. If you are interested in these events or any of our other activities, please join our mailing list. We are at cina.gmu.edu. That's CINA with a C, .gmu.edu. And once you've joined our mailing list, you'll receive all of our announcements. CINA is supported by a DHS board of directors, many of whom are on this call, so welcome, and they help to ensure the relevance of our research and identify champions in funding for transition. In addition to the cooperative agreement that supports research and the rest of the activities I've mentioned, we also have a basic ordering agreement between DHS and George Mason University, recently renewed for 5 years, which can facilitate transfer, licensing, and commercialization of research board components. If you're interested in learning more about how you can benefit from CINA's research, our transition and impact manager, Stephen Self, can help set you up. So now, without further ado, we will hear from Dr. Yubao Wu and Katya Bochkovar on the emergence and diffusion of illicit virtual goods across the international ecosystem. Dr. Wu, take it away.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Brooke. So Katya, I still see a blank screen on your side. Should I continue first while you try some other ways?
Perhaps you can start first, and then I'll take it from there. And in the meantime, I'll figure out what's happening.
Yeah, sure. Oh, I'm gonna start first. So actually, my part is kind of the second part. Katya should present first, but she's having some technical issue. But I'm mainly gonna talk about some technical details in this project. Now, even this project has.
Oh, Yubao, you went on mute.
Okay, is it good now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, even though this project has only been going on for 2 years, but I have been working on this area for 8 years since the very beginning of CINA. I remember I submitted the proposal when CINA released the first CFP call for proposal in 2018. You know, but it has been many years. We do have some long history with CINA.
Matt just reached out to me. He said he talked to Michelle. Michelle told me to put in, apply for that rec. I just did.
It sounds like we have some interference from folks in the audience. Could folks please mute if you're not speaking?
So basically, the first very basic task is data collection. So we developed the scrapers to access the darknet websites and then scrape the data from those websites. Now, in order to do so, what we do is that we run everything within a virtual machine in order to protect our physical machines and the students' information. So we create the virtual machines, right? Even though this machine is hacked or infected by computer virus, we still don't, lose our real person's data. And then, GSU has some firewall as well and censorship. So GSU basically doesn't like the Tor network. So that's why we are using a VPN. We run a virtual machine on the cloud, and then we run the Open VPN access server, and then also install the Tor proxy, run as a proxy, so that our virtual machine will connect to the VPN and then connect to the proxy, and then access the Tor network. Now, this additional layer of VPN also further protect our machines, right? So protect ourselves as well from these darknet actors. And eventually, there's scrapers, which are simply Python programs. They download these websites and then images, text, right, and then store the data on the database server. The raw data like text and images will directly stored on the disks, right? But the organization information, like the indexing information, will be put in a database server. And this short film shows that our scraper is working. So basically, it's automate the Firefox web browser just automatically navigate through different web pages without too much human intervention. So, this helps us a lot, right, to access the data like in an automatic way. The only thing that we observe, which is the great challenge, is that many websites, they try to, prevent the crawlers, right? Basically, they set up some captchas to verify that you are human to prevent the DDoS. So that's a significant challenge for the scraper. So we have to somehow manually solve those puzzles, created by those websites, and then we let the scraper to continue. But anyway, we have a human operating those scrapers, right? And then it's continually collecting data from those websites in a consistent manner. Now, after that, right, after we build our scraper and maintain our database, we also build web UI. So basically, we mainly rely on this modern web server macro framework. It's called a Python Flask, as you can see in the middle of this picture. Now, it's based on Python, but it's a very flexible and very powerful macro framework for modern. It's called a Web 2.0, right? Framework, right? Basically, within this Flask program, you can interact with your database and also your scrapers, right? To collect more information from those databases and then summarize or visualize your data. So here we are using a popular data visualization library for JavaScript. It's called the D3 from Stanford University, and then we display the data within graphics within the web browser. You can use any web browser like Edge, Chrome, Firefox to see the information from this from the database. So originally, usually you use this traditional database connector to visualize the data tables, right? For example, like a spreadsheet, right? But this kind of data summarization will be useful for non-computer scientists, right, to explore the database, right, because they may not know how to use SQL sentences, right, to query the database, right. So that's why we figure out we need this kind of web UI to display the information. Now, after this data collection and data curation, right, in the database, the most important task is to analyze the data so that we can collect more insights. For example, analyzing the trends, tracking this information. Tracking the vendors from different platforms, right? That's why we developed this AI technology, right? Basically, this shows one example, right? So basically, the data we collected include both text and images, right? So basically, the cybercriminals, they post those eyes and also the posts in forums as well, right? Those posts usually contains descriptions about their products and also the image or pictures, right? That's why we applied this state-of-the-art deep learning models, right? For text messages, we mainly applied BERT, is released by Google. The full name is Bidirectional Encoder Representation from Transformers, right? It's one kind of a transformer. It's considered as the open source alternative for ChatGPT from OpenAI, but ChatGPT is closed source and it's not free to use, right? So that's why we adopted BERT. This is a fairly big, large language model, right? So, but because we have a GPU server so that we can run. On the other side, for the image data, we're using these image transformers, right? We tried 3 of them. The first one is called ResNet, is Residual Neural Network, and then VINet, Vision Transformer, Swing, Hierarchical Vision Transformer using shifted windows. And these are the state of that, right? So basically, we couldn't develop this, sophisticated deep neural architectures, right? Deep neural network architecture, but we apply them and then we do fine tune on our local data set. This data set is unique, right? It's not used in training these models, so we do fine tune, and eventually our novel contribution is that we merge them together. We call it diffusion in this stage, right? Basically, there are two ways to merge these features from text and image together. The first way is called a concatenation. We simply put them together because each of them is going to be a feature vector. When you concatenate these two vectors together, you got a longer vector. And that's the feature vector that contains both the text and the image data, right? And the other one is called the attention-based. Attention-based neural network architecture is more and more used in modern deep neural network design. And we try both of these methods. Basically, attention-based will allow you to learn this weights, right? Basically, you put a weight on the text data feature and the image data feature and merge them together, right? So this is, I would say, better than the concatenation methods. Eventually, right, the merged feature vector will be used for some real-life applications. For example, classification. We can predict which type of eyes this is related, which type of crime, right? We can do that kind of identification. But those features are not just used for predicting the type of crime. We can also use them to do some other tasks that we're going to discuss later. For example, characteristic of these vendors, their writing style and photographic style. So basically, we can learn those features as well from this data, and by using these state-of-the-art methods. And based on this work, I have a PhD student working on this for 2 years, and she published 2 papers. Visualizing this, using these neural networks on the data we collected from darknet. Now, even though the title shows Telegram, but we also analyze the data that we collected from these darknet markets and other forums platforms. The other novel contribution that we did is to analyze the vendors, right? Basically, we try to track the vendors or link the vendors across multiple platforms. Now, in order to do so, one idea that we want to analyze is the activity pattern, right? Basically, for example, on the markets, those vendors will reply to those feedback reviews from the buyers, okay? And you know that reply, we can have a timestamp information. Basically, they have a time, right? And then based on those postings, right, when do they post, right? The time records, right? We want to analyze the time series data from the vendors, and then we want to discover some interesting pattern from them, or link these 2 vendors together. I mean, one person, one real person may operate 2 accounts, right? So that's why we want to link these 2 accounts together, right? So that's why we developed this novel convolution neural network, which is another type of deep neural network, right? We call it a 60 by 24 by 7 convolution neural network. It's just because we use this very basic features, right? Every hour has 60 minutes, and every day has 24 hours, and every week has 7 days. And based on those behavioral patterns, we believe that those workers working in that kind of pattern, right? For example, during the weekends, they may not work. During the nights, they have to sleep, right? Based on those intuitions, right, we design this kind of convolution neural network, right? So you can see that very beginning on the very left, you see the input data, which is a time series data. It could be very long, right? Every minute we have some data, right? Like, do they have posts or how many posts they have, right? Basically, we collect this kind of time series data from feedback reviews from the markets, or from the forum postings, right? Based on the activities. So it could be very long, right? For example, 1 year's data, right? And then we do convolution, right? The first kernel is targets the 60 minutes time interval, right? So based on that kind of kernel, we expect that we can extract some pattern within every hour, and then we move to the next level, right? It's a even higher level. It's called the convolution layer 2. Is based on the 24 hours kernel. Basically, every day has 24 hours, right? And then between these 2 kernels, of course, after each convolution, we also have a pooling layer in order to reduce the dimensions while we retain some important information, right? This is a commonly used technique in the convolution neural network. After the second layer, we do the third convolution. It's called a 7-day every week. We have 7 days, right? So you can see that because we're adding more and more kernels, so that is becoming, you see the width of the rectangle, right, is becoming larger, right? But the height is becoming smaller, right? Because, when you do convolution, right, you can have more kernels, right? So the columns in this data matrix represents those kernels data, but the height represents the convolution results, right? So that's usually what we observe, right, when we do this kind of convolution. I mean, hierarchical level convolution, right? And eventually, after the 3 convolutions, right, we do flatten. So becoming we convert basically the matrix data into a single vector, and that becomes the feature vector from this vendor. Okay, so basically the resulting feature vector, right, can be used to link 2 vendors, right? Basically, one real person, right, that operates 2 accounts, right? In that case, we can link them together. You can imagine, right? Usually they log into this account, do something, and then log in another one, and then they log out, right? And then they may sleep, or during the weekend they don't work, right? So we want to identify those kind of activity pattern from these vendors. And we also observe that this kind of pattern can also be used to identify the region or the time zone, right? And also maybe the race and culture, because they have holidays and they don't work. And if there's some kind of a religious holiday, for example, so they reduce the activity level at that kind of special days. Okay, so I believe that this kind of convolution neural network technology is a novel technology, right, for characterizing those vendors, because all of them are normalized and they are from international, right? So we want to somehow track them, right? We don't track them, like we don't like re-identify their personal information, but we want to do some kind of high-level analysis, right? Like which region they are from, right? Which country, what time zone, right? What culture or what race, right? And then how many accounts are operated by the same person, right? Or same group, likely, right? So this kind of technology is really what we develop, and we believe that it's novel. We're trying to wrapping up a paper right now, and we're going to publish the soon. The second one is that after we analyze each individual's behavior patterns, right, we want to analyze the groups, right, of all the vendors, right, across multiple platforms, right? This is going to be even more challenging, I would say. Now, you know that we from the computer science background, so we know this kind of information propagation models from social networks, like the well-known linear threshold model or independent cascade models, right? They are really well studied in computer science, but when we apply them on this kind of darknet data, we found that they are really oversimplified, right? Because when the original paper of these 2 models, right, they all use those kind of random influence probabilities, which means that they assume, for example, the user A will influence user C with a probability they don't know. So they guess it's, let's say, or assume it's 0.5 or 0.6, right? But this random guess of this influence probabilities really does not reflect the real life scenario, I would say. So that's why we estimate those real life influence probability in a more accurate way, and that's really a significant challenge. We'll do so. So the challenge is that how to accurately estimate the influence probability among the users. Okay, so we do 3 improvements, right? These are 3 innovations, right? The first one is why we profile each vendor, right? Basically, we observe, or we use some kind of algorithm, right? Like remember the features we extracted previously from the text and the pictures, right, that are posted by these vendors, right? So those features reflects that the type of crimes or the type of products the vendor is selling, right, or advertising, right, and also the activity levels, right, from the second time series data. We can observe how active they are, right? So those are somehow, right, the features of the vendor, right? So based on that, we integrate that features into this propagation model, right, to better estimate the influence probabilities, right? The second one is that because in the previous step where we link these vendors together, right? But that's just the one way, right? The activity pattern. We also have some other ways. For example, if they use the same contact information or the products or pictures, right? Product picture description are exactly the same. They will link them together, right? The writing or photographic styles, right? So multiple features, right, can be used to link those vendors, right, to prediction and predict that these vendors are operated by the same person. So that will further increase the accuracy in this propagation model. The third one is that we discovered that we can actually use a higher order Markov chain, right, and that will better reflects the real life scenario information propagation scenario, right? For example, on the left, right, in a traditional model, right, classic paper model, right, they let's say user D, is influenced by user C with the probability, right? But in addition to this one additional property, we also consider two order Markov chain. I mean, second order Markov chain, right? For example, if they say the IS is from A and to C and then to D, or from B to C to D, right? So those are two different properties, right? So it has a higher resolution, and it better reflects the information propagation. Okay, so we also, wrapping up another paper for this information propagation. Hopefully, we're going to have 4 papers published in total. And during this process of developing this novel technology, we identified the need of a computer cluster for storing the data and analyzing the data, and also hosting the database server and the web server, but mainly for storage and the GPU to run these deep learning models, right? That's why we purchased some equipment. You can see this is a 6-node cluster that we built in the past 1.5 years. This grant only is about 2 nodes, and I have 2 other grants to purchase the other 2. So in total, there are 6. So it's pretty expensive, but we have spent so much time setting up the software operating system and those distributed computing software for accelerating this software that our algorithm we developed previously. But you can see some basics, right? The front, you can see 6 nodes. In the bottom, they are all disks. But on the top, the 6 nodes are the main nodes. And on the back, you can see there are like lots of cables connecting them together. Those are Ethernet cables, right? This is fast 100 GB switch on the very top. So I gained a lot of experience in designing the cluster, building the cluster. So if CINA or DHS needs expertise, right, in building a cluster infrastructure for storage and computing, definitely I can provide some additional help. And these are the okay. So my colleagues asked me to go faster. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this one. So, but basically, I want to emphasize the SAF is eventually what we got. We got more than 250 terabytes storage, and finally, we do some technological transfer and commercialization. So basically, I talked with the OTTC office at GSU. They recognize the value. They think this is valuable to commercialize, but they're going to charge some intellectual property fee because I work for GSU. And they don't allow me to use the cluster, so I have to find some other fund to build the cluster outside GSU in order to create a startup company. But consulting service is totally allowed. Okay, the outcome is basically we're gonna deliver the algorithm software. We train the PhD students. We publish papers. We build a cluster, and we also work with the HSI Atlanta agents. Yeah, I'm gonna give the time to my colleague Katya. Well, thank you. Right. Katya. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Yuval. Thanks, everyone. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I hope that I will able to share the presentation right now. Let's try and see. Can anybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So at least this works this time. So let me start the... Okay, so... Not like that, like that. So thanks, Yuval, for providing us, with the details about the technical part of our project. I'm going to talk about the social sciencey part that we did. In other words, what kind of data we collected and what we did with this data. I'm going to focus on kind of three prongs of our study, which were the dark web forum scraping, the networks created by the threat actors that are frequently present on the dark web forums. And then I'm also going to talk about the dark web users, their characteristics and motivations. And all of this basically comes from the data that we were able to collect. And I'll wrap it up with some quick summary of what we found and some of the steps that we can take going into the future. So I'll start with the dark web forums. We got into this business understanding that there are really large ecosystems out there that are comprised by darknet forums and markets. For those people who are less familiar with the subject, dark web is basically anything that is not directly indexed by Google. This is not surface internet that we're familiar with. This is something that's kind of residing on the overlay networks, and something that is available to the people with slightly more expertise and who are able to utilize that space. So forums like darknet forums essentially are the systems that are able to accommodate masterminds behind some of the attacks on the infrastructure here in the United States, as well as the newbies who are seeking advice on how to get integrated into this business. Virtually anything can be found on the dark web. We're talking about vulnerabilities, data leaks, fraud manuals, and so on. So I have this little video here that shows that it's kind of this flashy little thing that jumps on you. There are different colors, different kind of things to do. So this is by all means very attractive to a lot of people. These are the languages that are spoken there may vary, but basically they are able to bring people from all around the world. So in terms of what we were able to do, we started with this kind of huge data set of about 500 forums that we were seeking to scrape. Basically, the forums like this, as we very quickly learned, are very frequently taken down. So by the time we were done, we were able to get about 103 forums. That's what we scraped. 103 forums that speak both Russian and English languages. And to date, this is the largest darknet forum data set that at least exists on record. We were interested in seeing whether or not these forums can be categorized in terms of their specialization. We quickly realized that some of them are more into hacking, some of them are more into various kind of fraud. And speaking about our data set, it's about 75 fraud, 25% hacking forums. We were able to look into their structure, various kind of activities that users take, the flow of goods and how goods basically move from one forum to another, as well as some of the predicted response patterns. So there's a lot of data to cover, and we worked on that with master's and PhD students, both on the northeastern as well as the Georgia side. But basically, we were able to understand that the forums that we scraped demonstrate really incredible longevity. We're talking about 8.5 years for fraud, 10 for hacking-related forums, and some of these have been in business for 23 years. So that is a long time, and they're able to accommodate some of the people who have been there since the creation of these forums. So this is a long time spent on the dark web. There are different patterns of activity as far as the forums are concerned, but some of them are super active, and we're talking about 250,000 postings a year. That's just how much information is being shared there. Not everybody who is present on the forum is equally active. Some people are very quiet, they're just observing. There are a lot of people, however, that are kind of in between, and a small portion of the people who are registered on the forums basically contribute to most of the activity. We were able to identify some users that basically post up to 900 times a month. So that's a lot of activity, and it kind of makes you think about who would be more interesting to focus on when it comes to the dark web participants. We were also able to glean from the conversations some of the key areas of interest, some of the key countries of interest to the fraudsters and hackers. I have this a little kind of a word cloud on the right that tells you some of the key things that some of these people are interested in. This is by all means not a kind of all-encompassing word cloud for sure. So definitely this is something that can be gleaned from these data. We also were able to look at the median prices on some of the common goods in both hacking and fraud forums. You can see that on the fraud forums, most of the kind of the most expensive goods would be stolen checks. These usually come in batches of about 45 to 50 per batch, and there are some people who will pay about 700 for them. On the hacking forums, the most expensive goods would be the ransomware, which is a blackmail malicious software that will paralyze your computer system until you pay the ransom to the malicious actors out there, as well as various kind of app payments. We're all familiar with, there are different apps that allow us to pay for different goods. So stolen accounts from those also are valued more highly. So these are kind of some of the key interesting things that we were able to observe, but they're not all. We were interested in seeing how quickly do forum postings spread from one forum to another, kind of traveling across that ecosystem. For example, if some companies' data are leaked out, how much time will they have before this is something that is processed by people, so to speak, and it makes its way to a different forum? So we had a couple of metrics for this, and one is, really how much time it will take for the post to travel from one forum to another. And this scatter plot basically shows that the majority of the postings that we looked at traveled, give or take, within about a month to 2 months. That's not to say that there aren't any that won't be spreading like fire, spreading within hours. We found some of those as well, but the majority of them actually took their time to be reposted somewhere else. So apparently people post somewhere, and then if it doesn't work, then they'll repost on some other forums. So that's kind of one way to glean how much interest there will be. And we created this prediction model that I have a very quick video demonstration here that shows how quickly things spread depending on the keywords that are inside the postings. And so you can see that it is highly variable depending on what kind of goods are being discussed in this case. So we were also interested in seeing how much of a response particular postings will generate, because that's kind of another metric of seeing how quickly people will jump on whatever vulnerability you're sharing. And basically the model that I'm presenting here also will input, we are inputting different kind of keywords that are prominent on the forums, just to kind of see what is going to be met with a lot of response. And you can see that, for example, the data leaks are generally very interesting to people, and the predicted reply count is 134. So that means that there will be a lot of interest, and a lot of people will jump on the opportunity as soon as this is published. So the victims usually have to act very quickly if they know that they've been victimized. So dark web forums were kind of a very interesting part to our study, but not the only part. Another facet of the study was the activity of the people who frequent these forums. So we started with kind of several forum actors that were really very prominent, had a lot of reputation, and we were trying to see how much information we'll be able to get on their internet personas. Now, we were never really interested in their identities, and so we never pursued that route. We didn't do that. We basically stopped at their internet realm and what they're doing there. And very quickly we realized that we actually are looking at the network of people, the people who are sharing one common goal, and that is working within the ransomware oriented groups to basically to get as much profit as possible from their victims. So this is the network. This is what it looks like. The yellow dots are for the groups. The blue ones are for individuals that participate in these. And these are some of the metrics that we were able to glean from the network. This is one of the publications that we are currently having under review. And essentially, this is a really unique data set that allows us to see what these networks look like. We collected this, this is a natural question, what kind of information we were using to collect this data. It's basically open source information, anything that we could find on the cybersecurity firm reports, dark web forums, DOJ press releases, social media. Many of these people have their own accounts on X and other places. So what we were able to glean from this was that this is a network that is pretty low density. So those 236 entities that we were able to identify basically are kind of low density, non-hierarchical network. That means that there is no leader out there that will give out orders to people. Instead, these are subgroups that kind of work closely working together, but they rely on the data brokers or information brokers that connect these groups together. And so these are the crucial links between many of these groups and individuals. Without those brokers, there would not be a network. So basically, as we were thinking about that, we said law enforcement definitely would want to focus on the brokers because they seem to be kind of the key to many of these networks and their way of survival in many ways. And finally, kind of the key part, the other third key part to our data collection efforts was the survey of 123 dark web participants. To our knowledge, this is the first moderate-sized survey of the people who actually frequent the dark web. It's not a kind of a huge one. We didn't have the resources for that, and it's not as small as many others that are out there that usually include, maybe about a dozen or 2 dozen of people. So we basically wanted to see what these people are about, their age characteristics, what they're interested in, as well as some of their motivations and so on. All of this data collection process was entirely anonymous, so we didn't collect any tracing information on these people. And so we were able to see, as you can see, that the majority of these people are very young. So most of them are under the age of 25. That's basically tells you volumes about the kinds of people who frequent the dark web. And as far as their interests are concerned, it's basically kind of it's almost an equal spread of different things, malware production, hacking into systems, carding frauds, selling various kind of goods. We typically mean illicit goods in this case. So it's kind of a garden variety of things that these people are doing, but obviously they're all pursuing some crime opportunities on the dark web. So we conducted a couple of studies. In this study in particular, that also is a publication, we are looking at the ways that people perceive themselves on the dark web, whether or not they feel that they're safe there, are they in fear of any kind of scam being pulled on them, do they find dark web rewarding? And we found that basically having people that on the dark web or having peers engage in cybercrime basically makes you feel safer, feel like you don't need to fear any scams on the dark web, and feel that dark web is a really nice and rewarding place. So we just need to continue being there, they'll think. In terms of the activities that are associated with our perceptions of safety there, people who engage in malware, are interested in malware production, malicious software, tend to feel safer there, but that's not the case for the people who are particularly engaged in ransomware production, ransomware distribution, ransomware attacks, and so on. They tend to feel unsafe on the dark web. That doesn't mean that they don't go there, but they still are very cautious. This probably is because the level of expertise of these people tends to be higher, and also they probably are much more aware of being surveilled, because ransomware is something that we have in general under magnifying glass a lot more. Not so much the researchers, but law enforcement in general around the world. So these are kind of some of the questions that we had about these people's motivations and how they perceive the risks. And finally, we were also interested in seeing whether or not these people are deterrable. David Mayman, a third participant of our group, basically just very recently released a study that was carried out using different methods, but they found that basically people on the dark web are deterrable. It's possible to make the conditions for them on the markets or forums such that they will say, I don't want to engage in any transactions here. So we were kind of pursuing this similar idea with this, and we asked people, so suppose the XYZ forum where you usually do business, changes such that there's a certain proportion of sellers that has mostly negative reputation. How likely would you be to still do business, engage in transactions on this forum? And we basically upped the stakes from 10 to 20% sellers perceptibly that appear to have negative reputation, all the way up to 50% or more. And you can see that from about 40% up, there's really no change. People basically say, no, I won't be doing business there. I'm very unlikely to do that. So, that lilac line right here basically tells us that they're really unlikely to do this. If it's 50% or more, and 40 to 50% sellers basically result in more or less the same outcome. People say, no, I don't want to do this. So this basically pertains to the idea of lemonizing the market, make it perceptibly unsafe for the buyers or sellers such that they would be dissuaded from doing business there. So overall, in terms of the insights, we basically found that dark web forums are really durable ecosystems. And so it would definitely be of importance for us to look into a reduction of crime opportunities there. So taking down, disrupting either taking down or disrupting in some other ways, dark web forums would be kind of a beneficial development, because that would mean a significant reduction in opportunities for many, many motivated users out there. Our network analysis basically showed that there are those information brokers in cybercrime networks, and so focusing on those brokers might be very effective. And finally, we also found that cyber actors are, despite all their characteristics, definitely deterrable, and so we might want to look into ways to deter them from doing business on these forums using various kinds of manipulations. And again, we have 3 publications at this point in time that are in various kind of progress, which means that they're already, out there under review. And we presented our findings 3 times on different conferences. And there will be definitely more products based on this, because there's a lot of data out there, and we are looking forward to analyzing it more. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yuval and Katya. That was fascinating, very interesting. I have a little asterisk to add, which was that the data for this project were collected prior to the current program year. Our terms and conditions in this program year have changed, such that some of the activities that were that were highlighted in this presentation are no longer possible going forward, specifically scraping the web. And I want to reassure everybody that this data was completely collected before the current program year. Now,
Absolutely.
Right, so we have about 5 minutes left, and I would encourage folks on the line to raise your hand, and we would be happy to take a question or 2. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we'd be happy to entertain a couple of questions for the group. Okay. Any questions? You're also welcome to put a question in the chat. I'd be happy to read those out. Okay, well, let's, while folks are formulating their questions, Katya and Yubal, could you tell us a little bit about your next steps? What plans do you have to take this research forward?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yubal, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I mean, I have this cluster is $200,000, 6 GPUs. Definitely has the power to run, a bigger deep learning models. So definitely, we can do some cutting edge research on the data, which is really unique that we collected. So definitely, my group. I trained the 2 PhD students. They are very beginning. You see, that's why we have a papers published relatively slow, because they are trained. You see, the first year they couldn't basically publish anything. They need to take courses, right? But now they are in the 3rd year, so we can definitely publish more papers in the next few years more and do more research. I've been working on this project for 8 years. I'm going to continue for the next, I would say, at least 2 decades. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of data out there. There are a lot of different routes to take. One of the routes that is fascinating to us at the moment is, given what we know about some of the connections between the forum actors, from our ransomware network data set, is it possible, knowing what we know about these people, predict from their conversations on the forum whether or not they're connected with each other? Because very, very often we really don't know whether or not people are related to each other in any way, whether they work together and so on. And this is something that is very important for a lot of people who are in the business of determining what these people are about, what they do, and so on, what kind of networks they create, and knowing that that we can glean from some of the conversations using machine learning, that we can glean who is connected to whom based on some of the words that they use, how they talk to each other, and so on, some of the language that they use. If we're able to use the data that we have already without doing, anything in terms of more data collection, even with these data, we would be able to do really fascinating things, because we would be able to say, okay, so based on their conversations, there is a huge likelihood that X is related to Z and Z is related to Y, and so on. And so they probably work in some kind of a network together.
Yeah, I want to add one more point, is the technical, it's called a technology transfer. I plan to open a startup company. I think this is ready because the experience of building the cluster, providing cloud services. I hope that I have more talks or connections with the DHS part. So DHS, I believe, is a potential customer to my company. I would say I'm working on that as well. Yeah, commercialization. But I hire many companies, like for example, E-Trade. They are very interested in purchasing our data. Yeah. So those banks, they're very interested in the leak data. So we collect data for us, and collecting data apparently is not the easy task. It's not trivial at all. So I see the value, and the company, the university also see the value in commercialization. Just that we need to we cannot use the GSU computer. We have to use the computer outside GSU. So yeah, but that's definitely a plan for me in the next few years. Yeah, I hope that this company will become true in the near future. Yeah. You are muted, Brooke.
You're muted, Brooke.
Thanks. And let's clarify for everybody on the call who is a government employee. The government does retain full use, non-exclusive use rights in the data. And so when Yubal says customer, he's not talking about selling the government's data back to itself. He's talking about licensing arrangements for
the future.
For the future, yes.
Yeah. Software apparently, yeah, I will submit the source code, right? But we're gonna develop a new algorithm, new software, right? So I believe there's I would say good collaboration, especially Atlanta. HSI Atlanta agents, they talk with us regularly. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
we
you
have
for
a
the
question.
clarification.
We have a question here from Jessica Taverna. Will you be showing the slides presented by email? Yes, we will be presenting the slides,
Yeah, apparently,
sharing the
yeah.
slides, and also a video that we would encourage folks who are on the line today to share with folks who weren't able to make it. Katya, did you have another point to make?
I just wanted to, very, very quickly point out that with the cluster that Yuba was able to build, a lot of the analysis of the huge data that we have at this point in time is made possible. And so a lot of the things that we're, right now looking into, venturing into, based on machine learning and so on, is possible because of the cluster, will be possible to do a lot more with this. So it's a huge asset.
Great. And Jessica had a quick question. Can you explain to us who don't know the issue with web scraping? I'll just go a tiny bit more into detail, which is that in the current program year, the terms and conditions which govern S&T's relationship with George Mason has indicated that no project which uses the technique of web scraping can be funded under this cooperative agreement. And that was a decision by DHS S&T, and that applies to this particular cooperative agreement. And we're making clear that we have abided by that in this current program year. We're sharing with you a project that began and where all of the data was collected in a previous program year under a different set of terms and conditions. So for folks who are aware of this concern on S&T's part, we want to make that absolutely clear. For folks for whom this is news, I should point out that web scraping is allowed under other circumstances. For example, it could be negotiated as part of a contract with a component, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about research that was funded under a cooperative agreement where web scraping in the past was allowed and is no longer allowed.
Yes, absolutely. We started 2.5 years ago, and then we were able to complete the scraping before the new terms took place. So that's and this is, again, we don't have any immediate plans of doing any scraping in the future. More than enough data for us to work on at this point in time.
Yeah, I will follow the policy, but apparently scraping the data is the key in academic research, right? I mean, internet data. So yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yuval, this is a decision made by DHS and S&T in order to protect the privacy of individuals. So of course, web scraping is being used in many research contexts that are funded through other vehicles.
Yeah, understand. I mean.
Great. We are here at 11:35, so folks probably have other things on their calendar. So I'll wrap it up here and thank our presenters, Yuval and Katya. As we mentioned, all the slides and the video will be available to everybody who participated, available through our website. And if you are interested in learning more about this research and potentially transitioning it into your own component, we here at CINA are happy to talk to you about that. But for now, we'll say goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.